If you were to conduct a second study similar to this one, what would you change and why? What limitations apply to the original?
Yeah, so the study we did was really to try and get a lay of the land to understand how many people were participating, what the nature of their participation was, what were their knowledge, beliefs, behaviors, attitudes regarding the community, the reasons why they joined the community. What would be really interesting, but would be quite difficult to do, is you can measure using scientific methods people's mental health at any one time. Would be to do what we call a longitudinal study, where we kind of measure their mental health and their social integration variables before they enter the community, and then measure them again uh, when they are in the community, and then measure them again maybe when they've left the community, and to do that to see what kind of uh, impacts community has on them. And if we do that, we can also measure negative variables as much as variables around mental health and depression.
When you began your study, you found that there was a lack of research taken in the seduction community. Some of this research focused on looking at the written advice, such as books from coaches in the seduction community, like Mystery. You noted that these studies were limited because they didn't involve research with normal people involved in the community itself. How different do you think your study could be if it included looking at the influences of the seduction community's coaches and leaders, as well as differentiations between very active pickup artists and people who only dabble in pickup, or even those who have been doing it for a significant amount of time and those who are only very new?
In our study, we did ask people, we did ask the participants about their views of uh, the community, if we can use that, the teachers, the professionals who charge people to do boot camps or who produce content that you have to pay for. And the results we got were pretty clear, in as much as almost all people said you have to take everything they say with a pinch of salt. Um, that there's a lot of good advice out there, but there's also a lot of bad advice, and that you have to be critical about what you absorb and what you reproduce in your own life. And there was a recognition that some of these so-called instructors are better than others, and some of them have more better insights than others. But that everything they say does not necessarily apply to your own life. So we certainly didn't see what the media seemed at the time to be purveying, and which people say today about Andrew Tate, that these young men are kind of blindly following uh, the advice that they're given, leading them to be creeps or perverts or sexual abusers. That was not something we saw in the study. And this was even those who consumed a lot of content. And I think that also speaks to the fact that in our study, everybody was in a kind of, it was a real in-person community. So people would get together and talk about these things, and be critical about the information they were given. So it could be different now, where there's less actual physical community, there's more online community, there's more online, people are producing online content rather than going to in-person kind of events. Um, so when we did the study, there was things like inner circles or layers, to use the terminology of the time. And we went to a few of these where people would present, and afterwards we would ask the participants, what did you think of that? And they would say, yeah, yeah, some of it was good, some of it not so good. I'm not sure I would do that. Or so um, that critical mindset when you're in a community like this, which, we have to be honest, does as a risk, have a risk of teaching uh, teachings which could be harmful to other people and to yourself. It is very important to maintain that critical mindset and to have others to bounce the ideas off, and not just to blindly accept what's being told. And our, our, our sample if I remember rightly, was certainly a highly educated sample. Many of them had degrees or were studying for degrees. They were people who had critical thinking. So I feel that's important to state.
Mm, for sure.